Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack. Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. This is your host, David Allen Lucas, author of Crazy Things, president of St. Louis Writers Guild, president of Winding Trails Media. Since last time you've heard from us, quite a lot has happened, and I'd like everybody who's with me to be able to introduce themselves, just like I'm doing right now. I have some authors who have not been on the podcast before with us, so they are learning the ropes. Right Pack Radio had its main run in December. This is a special episode. And since that time, yours truly has been tapped to be co-screenwriter and fight scene coordinator on an international movie that's coming up. Starts filming next year. This is right now 2019. Starts filming in the summer of 2020. And it will start filming in the country of Colombia. So life's going to be very interesting for me. With us today, going through our normal cast first, is the one, the only, the queen of erotica herself.
Hello, I'm Lee Savage, author of the erotica for the Truly Wicked, model, and actress. I now have my now 3 IMDb credits.
Yay!
Cool.
So there's a little success, and and I'm, Oh, I also write children's books under the name Carrie Lee Williams.
Very good.
There we go.
I was going to
The
say you
before
did
and
this
after. Can't leave that out.
No, it's been a while. I know you're out of practice. Also with us today is the man who's got the voice that's got it.
Yes, my name is George Soroy. I am the CEO of Winding Trails Media now, as the host and producer of the podcast Excelsior Journeys. I am also an author of the YA sci-fi books Excelsior and Ever Upward Part 2 in the Excelsior series. Let's rewind that a little bit.
Yep.
How many books have you written, George?
I'm the author of the YA sci-fi books Excelsior and Ever Upward Part 2 in the Excelsior Journey, and also author of the 5-part serial From Parts Unknown. I am currently banging my head on the keyboard to get Greater Glory Part 3 in the Excelsior Journey out, and I am now proudly represented by Metamorphosis Literary Agency, specifically Amy Brewer and Patty Carruthers.
Excellent. He's also a fellow voice actor, an audiobook narrator. Also with us today is one of my favorite illustrators of all time.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Stolzer. I'm a children's book author and illustrator. My YA fantasy novel Threadcaster has been for sale at GatewayCon all weekend and will still be for sale at GatewayCon for a little bit after this. It's been out for a couple years, and we're talking about successes. I'm proud to say that the sequel is on its way, but the universe of Threadcaster has expanded greatly. I now have children's books in the Threadcaster universe. I have a chapter book coming out in a couple months, and then I'll have a middle grade coming out by the end of the year, all in the Threadcaster universe. So if you picked up and read Threadcaster, there's much more canon content to consume at various age, reading levels, and price levels. I also publish and make my own children's books. I've mentioned Dog Park on the podcast before, and the sequel to Dog Park actually just came out this weekend. So it's called Cal Learns to Share. It's about the dog that my sister brought into our pack. So I added him to the book just like he was added to our family.
Excellent. We also have and he's eventually joining. I'll have him announced last. My brother in arms here in a little bit. But we have some new authors with us today. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves and talk about it. I'm going to let ladies go first.
Well, I am definitely a newbie at this podcasting. My name is Terry Baker Mulligan, and I've written 3 books. My first one was called Sugar Hill, Where the Sun Rose Over Harlem. It was an IPPY and a, it won, I can't even remember the name of the other word. It was an award-winning book. The second one was Afterlife in Harlem, which is a historical fantasy about Alexander Hamilton meeting Bill Clinton. And my newest one that just came out last month is called These Boys Are Killing Me, Travels and Travails with Sons Who Take Risks. It's a travel memoir about my son's travels backpacking around the world with interludes of other travels and other stories in our family. Thank you.
I am definitely, I'm sitting back picturing Hamilton having a conversation with Bill Clinton. That I want to be a fly in the room on. That would be interesting.
And now you have the opportunity.
Yes. Also with me today is
Ed Protzel. I have been a screenwriter. I'm writing novels exclusively now. I have the Dark Horse Trilogy. It's a historical novel series. The Lies That Bind is about a hustler drifter and a group of slaves who form a secret partnership in the antebellum South. The second in the series is about the group forms a regiment, a colored cavalry regiment in western Missouri during the guerrilla war. And the third book, Something in Madness, will be out later this year. They return to Mississippi during the Reconstruction. I also have a contemporary thriller out now called The Antiquities Dealer. And that is pretty wild. It's called a David Greenberg mystery, but it's a mystery thriller with deep meanings to it. And that's basically it.
perfect. Next up is a gentleman who was reading yesterday at Gateway Con, and I have got a very strong stomach to stuff because of things I've seen. So I didn't flinch or anything else, but I was watching the audience, and he was very, very visceral with his descriptions. I absolutely loved hearing it. So I will let him talk about himself here.
Hi, I'm John Bryant. It's my first novel, The National Average. I somehow wrote a YA novel. But it revolves around the question, what if there was a government test that could predict whether or not you'd be a psychopath? And if you ever, for your first novel, if you ever just are curious to write two dual timelines, don't do it. I did. It was something. But the more I write, I started to write more urban fantasy. That's really my wheelhouse. I'm currently writing a piece called Malcolm and Ali. The intent is to be a series. But also I've been writing a lot of contemporary fiction, stuff that historical fiction, which I read yesterday.
Yes.
So I'm kind of all over the map, but we're glad to be here.
Perfect. And back with us today is the Admiral of the Sky Pirates himself. I've been waiting all weekend to say that again. The one, the only.
Yes, I am Brad R. Cook. I am the author of the Iron Chronicles, which is Iron Horseman, Iron Zulu, and Iron Lotus. They are YA steampunk novels. It's historical fantasy. I am also the author of of Steam Tree, the Urdranium Adventures, which is a middle grade steampunk it's illustrated by Jennifer Stolzer right over there.
Yep.
And then lastly, coming out very soon, probably in August, will be the History of St. Louis Writers Guild, a complete telling from basically 1920 all the way up until 2020. 100 years old. Sweet.
And many years in
Yes.
the process. You've worked really hard on that.
Yes, he has. So today we're going to talk about a topic that is going to encompass a lot, and that is the road of success. Part of Winding Trails Media, we talk about there is no straight road to success. There isn't. Let's face it. If you have a straight road to success, something went easy and you really didn't work hard for it, and is it really success?
And congratulations for your luck.
Yeah, yes, seriously. So what we want to talk about is what is seen as success from inside the maze of the authors and of the publishing world today. We're all American that are standing around, or actually sitting around the microphone, and Americans tend to focus on numbers, in generally speaking. Ask any American about weight loss, and you'll hear it come out easily. What do they judge by? They judge by the scale, more than they do by how the clothes feel, how their body feels. In the book publishing world, they're focused on how many books do they sell, what's happening on Amazon, what ranking did they get, are they getting enough money to pay the bills, which, by the way, is very important. Don't get me wrong with that. How many star ratings do they get, and so forth. But that is a limited focus. I challenge everybody out there. That's a limited focus, and that's a quick focus
Numbers
to...
are fun.
Well, numbers can be fun, don't get me wrong, but they can be a trap.
Yes.
And that's what you don't want to be in, because that will kill your creativity. I'm going to share something from myself, and I'm going to let everybody know, everybody else launch, whoever wants to go first. I got focused on numbers. Now, everybody who's listening to this podcast knows I was spent years stuck in my writing. It was going absolutely nowhere. I almost gave up. And now you heard I'm going to be a co-screenwriter for a movie. I have also finally got a novel that is not dying. I think I found my true niche. It will, with luck, come out around, I'll have it to at least my beta readers by August, knock on wood. So probably next year around this time. More about that, on my own personal podcast, Exploration Beyond, when there's information available. But what I did was I took myself out of a number count. I stopped going. I could sit down with a keyboard and write 5,000 to 6,000 words a day without an issue. And I started putting myself to that, and I started creating stress levels. Stress kills creativity. I stopped.
The way that I really kind of gauge success is if you have someone out there who's willing to invest in you. That, to me, is a major element of success. I started out like a lot of people did as a self-published author, and I started out with both the 2002 edition of From Parts Unknown. This is way back during the Ex Libris days when representatives were calling you at 2:00 in the morning trying to pitch their $1,000 book package, so that way you can send out like this overpriced, terrible looking book that will basically just line the walls of your garage. So that was its own little thing. But with Excelsior, that was self-published in 2010, and when I had an opportunity to pitch to a small press based out of St. Louis, I took that opportunity, and I was asked by that publisher, why are you making, are you sure you want to do this? You seem to be doing just fine as a self-published author. And I said that, a big thing for me is having someone in my corner, someone who is willing to invest in me. Turns out she was, and because of that, it wound up opening up a lot of new doors, new avenues to get my book out there. I had someone else who was pitching my book alongside me, and I had more people basically like wanting to pick it up because of that. And then when it got picked up in 2017 by another small press, when my previous press went out of business, that publisher took it the extra step beyond, because he was able to get it into wider distribution, which led it to get a BookBub promotion. And all of a sudden, we had that BookBub promotion, which wound up getting enough numbers to label me as an international bestseller. Didn't get the USA Today letters, didn't get the New York Times letters, but it did get the #1 bestseller flag on both Amazon US and Amazon Canada. So there, international bestseller, they say that counts. I am good with that. And yes, so because of that, that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have people in my corner investing in me, which includes my agents, Amy and Patty. They are investing their time, their energy, their money into me. And that, to me, makes me a success story.
What about anyone else? Yes, Lee.
So my success story is probably a little bit different because I decided to not just focus on just writing because I was focusing on wanting to try to get into more cons. And cons are expensive. And if you want to be the guest that gets your table for free, you need to be in entertainment. So I started looking at modeling and doing indie films with the focus of I'll be the trifecta. And then I can come in there, and if I can build my brand enough, I can be getting my table for free, which means, guess what? I just have to pay for my travel, which opens up more doors, lets me meet more people in person, because I stopped looking at Amazon reviews. People will tell you in person they loved your book. You ask them to write it on Amazon, forget it. I mean, come on. It just doesn't happen that much. You might get lucky, but I stopped focusing on that because to me it's better to have someone come to me and tell me they loved my book buy more books, become that dedicated fan that no matter what I write, they want to read across different genres because they know I do that, over just, being focused on just the reviews on Amazon. I was turned down for BookBub because I don't have enough reviews. Would I love to eventually get reviews? Yes, but I no longer focus on it.
Really quick, too, unless Amazon has changed, which to my knowledge they haven't, but if they have, forgive the old knowledge. Amazon likes to look and see when the people are connected to you, they've reviewed you. Mm-hmm. And if they find there's some type of connection, they will remove it. Furthermore, just human nature, people like to complain more than they like to compliment. So if they really hated you, they're fast to do an Amazon review. If they didn't, then they might not review ever.
I think with the negative reviews, so when I first started writing, I did focus on numbers. Mm-hmm. And so, like you just said, it was very difficult to get someone to write a review. And typically, if they really love it or they really hate it, there's not really a lot of middle ground. But I remember getting my first scathing, blistering review. And you spend all this time and energy writing it, months, years, however long, and it's kind of like a child. It's your baby, and it really hurts. But for me personally, I started using those negatives to kind of make my writing better. Those are more valuable. And I find those are, if you get a negative review, I find that a bigger success because it really helps you develop your craft.
Cool. Go ahead, you got your dovetail. Go ahead.
I do not focus on reviews either, but in terms of success, when I had my first book come out, I had a publicist in New York, and I counted success as the many events he scheduled me for. The downside was that I usually had to pay my own airfare, but I'm from New York. I have friends there. My family's all gone, and I so many extras came out of those events. I mean, they were great events, like at Riverside Church, Columbia University, City College, where I went to graduate school, and on their radio show and so on. But I reconnected with all my old friends because I wrote about growing up in Harlem. And that has been wonderful to kind of, especially as you get older, making connections again. And I sold a lot of books. I mean, that book sold a lot of books. It helps to have a publicist. They're expensive, though. But that is because I'm older. I don't understand a lot of the social media. It's very burdensome and cumbersome for me. So I usually hire somebody to help me, which is what works for me. And that's another option. Often it pays for itself.
To change gears very briefly, since we're going around the circle and talking about what we consider personal success, I wanted to share what I've learned through. I realized recently that next year marks 10 years of me being a freelance illustrator. 10 years ago, I left my job at the website that I was working at with a goal to be in business for myself. Mostly because I realized that I was doing it all anyway. But I wanted to be in business for myself, and I wanted to do something that I felt passionate about. And I've learned through making mistakes, through placing value in the wrong places and evolving, that what I consider a success state is whatever that allows me to keep creating. And I also really love conventions and hand selling. So when, it's like I don't have 100,000 or even just 100 Amazon reviews. Threadcaster I love dearly and I can talk it up constantly, but it's not a New York Times bestseller. I have no idea how many copies it sold because, again, I also abandoned the numbers game because the numbers game was really killing that feeling of loving to create and loving to share my artwork, either visual or literary. So my success state, which I have achieved and continue to strive to achieve, is to put myself in a place where I can keep making new things and keep growing in those fields. And that's been very rewarding to me.
Cool. Success. To be honest, I've given up trying to label myself and trying to figure out if I'm a success or not. I'll fully admit it. I don't even really. I can't tell you if I'm a success. However, other people keep telling me that I mean, LaShonda Hoffman called me a big-named author this weekend, and I was like, "Are you kidding?" And she's like, "Yeah, you're a big-name author." I was like, "Okay, that's a new one to me." But to be honest, where we're really focusing on is my readers, and the reason I say that is because I write YA in middle grade, so my readers tend to be in the average between 10 to like 15. And they don't leave reviews, and they're not going to do a ton of things. They're not going to come reach out to me, and all of that kind of stuff. But because I had a series and I published multiple books, the same kids showed up to every book signing. Like they bought the first book, they wanted the second book, so they showed up the next year. And by the third year, I was recognizing these kids, and that's amazing to me that I had that ability to that they followed me, and then I've had the one do a book report on me. The other one, his mother came up and he said, she said he doesn't read. He doesn't read until he picked up your book, and now he's read all 3 of your books. Mm-hmm. And if I had to label success, I would say that's probably the best way that I personally can label success. Now, yes, I've done big events. I've sold out at Main Street Books on my launch day. That's awesome. That is a huge feeling of pride and accomplishment. I had the great thing at the Science Center where I talked to 300 people in the giant Omnimax Theater and had my presentation 2 stories behind me, and then did a book signing where literally they were lined to the bridge at the Science Center. That was huge. I loved it. It was amazing. But at the same time, that was one day. So are you a success? Or was that just was that glorious day? And to be honest, I've given up trying to see whether or not that's success or not, and just kind of labeled it all in a giant box and called it, well, yeah, I did pretty good.
Okay, real fast, myself, you, then coming back over to you, then over to you. Okay, one thing I'm just going to make it very quick. One of the things I absolutely loved watching your success is you're like, okay, am I successful or not? Brad and I put on a writing the fight scene workshop at a local high school for their writing convention. And one of the kids came up with an illustration that he drew from your book.
It was a painting.
It was a painting.
It was the painting of my cover, which was amazing.
Webster?
It was Webster Groves.
Yes, and they do that for theirs. It's awesome.
Okay.
The way I look at it, when you said that that it's just one day, when people hit bestseller lists, they hit it for a very brief period of time. They'll be there for 1 week or something like that, and then they're off. They could be either down on the list, they could be completely off the list. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But for that one moment, they were able to take that and carry that with them for the rest of their lives.
We live in
the
a
fact that
series
you
of
did
moments.
that,
Yes.
you did, you were able to do that. You can hold on to that. Therefore, you can carry that for the rest of your life. Therefore, that makes, in my eyes, it makes you a success.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. And like David, I've completely disposed of the numbers game. When I started in screenplay writing, of course, you expect a lot of remuneration. But Sherry Lansing, the first female head of a studio, said I wrote a great script and I was offered things.
Paramount, right?
Yeah, she went to Paramount. She was at 20th Century Fox then, and Murray Silverman and so forth.
Wow.
But I first of all, I didn't want to live in L.A. Secondly, in the Darwinian churn of Los Angeles and Hollywood, I got spit out pretty quickly when the studio was still. So I came to St. Louis, and I write novels. Fortunately, my wife handles the business and the publicity, so I don't want to know how much money is involved, and I don't. And I've also gotten to the point where I don't really want to dwell on reviews, although I've gotten terrific reviews, 5-star readers' favorite reviews on a couple of my books, The Lies That Bind and The Antiquities Dealer, but because they get me depressed. So I enjoy writing. I enjoy making up these constructs. And fortunately, I don't have to depend on the income, so.
Over to you, Lee.
Okay, so I'm going to switch gears and say another thing that means success to me is finally being able to go to writers' conferences and have writers come up to me asking for advice, being on panels, giving advice, and sharing my experience and my knowledge, and maybe helping them avoid some of the mistakes that I made when I first started out. And to me, sometimes that's even more meaningful than, yes, readers are great, but also being able to help other writers take off and like get into the craft is just another level of that success that is very meaningful too.
You had C. Hope Clark like laughing her butt off at that panel. The other day.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback with what Lee said, there was last year's book conference. Actually, I met Terry there. In the West End Book Fest, and there was a kid who came and bought one of my books. He came to this conference,
Really?
and making those connections with people just through your words that's for me is more successful than any dollar amount. I mean, it'd be nice to make millions off of it, but exactly making those connections where someone actually finds what you do to be they're passionate about it, and they'll actually come out to see you, like Brad had mentioned. That is a really big measure of success for me too.
Okay, so the other big thing about success, we're all talking about like readers and everything like that, but to be perfectly honest, if no one read my books, that would suck. But on some level, to be honest, to me, what really bodes in me success and what I really love about being a writer, and one of the reasons why I keep plugging away at this, is actually finishing a book. The ability to put the final period into a book and to have 90,000 words or 40,000 words, and that you wrote them and they make sense together, and that's a story that you told. That's amazing. And that is a superpower, to be perfectly honest. And to the notion of like having written several books now, where I've written more than one, and I can look at them on the shelf or whatever, and that's great and all, but I have more than that are just sitting there in nothing more than a notebook and a stack of paper, because it didn't make the cut. It hasn't sold yet or whatever. And I love those books just as much as I love the other books, the ones that made it to the shelf, the ones that are published. And the reality is that as of right now, I have officially written 10 books. And that's huge to me. Now, yeah, only 4 of them are currently on the shelf. But that's amazing to me that I wrote 10 books. That there are 10 stories that I have created. Now, yeah, one of them is the history of St. Louis Writers Guild. So, that's less of a story and more of a giant, collection of things. But it's still awesome, and it's still amazing to put the final period into that. So I would say on some level, success comes just from putting the words down on the paper and getting it out of you, getting the whole story out of you. Because so many people will start a book and never finish it. So many people will say, I've got a great story that I want to tell, but they're never going to tell it. They're never going to write it. And yet, as a writer, you sat down and you actually penned an entire book. And that should be seen as something, stellar and amazing.
In fact, I had one therapist that I was dealing with, and he said, keep writing. It really helps your sanity.
Oh, you had to go there. Yes. And in fact, this is going to lead to where my question is to you guys. If you listen to Right Pack Radio in the past, you've heard about all the struggles I had. And that took me from being able to produce 1 to 2 books a year to nothing for several years. And there was a point in which I actually wanted to give up. In fact, I gave up writing. Talk about losing your sanity. That creativity is like, I want out. Get me out of your head. I know that sounds completely insane, but yeah, there is a demand I think all of us writers have. It. We've got to get our creativity out. It will not. We've been given this weird talent, weird gift for a reason. And we better use it. And we decide to nope, I'm not going to use it. It's either going to be a hard fight to get back. Right now, Leah, you and I have both been on this road because you're going through. You've just finished your bachelor's degree.
Yep, bachelor's degree in healthcare management.
Right. So you had to put your writing on hold, and you've already talked, and we need to talk later about that getting back to. Finally, as you've heard, I'm back on that road now. But yeah, I was going through massive depression when I couldn't write. And it's just ugh. So go ahead, George, and then we're going to continue that.
Just to kind of dovetail on what you were talking about now, it reminds me of a quote that Paul Schrader once gave. Said that the only reason why people get into the arts is because they have no choice.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's true.
I did not pick the arts. The arts picked me.
I just wanted to say part of what helped me keep my sanity during that time when I couldn't write at least what I wanted to write, because I still wrote. It was just all boring college stuff. Put you to sleep. So the modeling helped, because it was another form of art. It was another form of outlet. Getting to do one-day filming helped. Get some of that acting stuff out, and it helped me kind of stay connected into the creativity, so I didn't completely lose it. It's just I knew I couldn't sit down and start writing on what I want to write, because I can't spend one day doing that. If I get into the zone, it's going to be multiples. And I had papers I had to put in every week, sometimes multiple papers, so I couldn't give myself that time to do it. Otherwise, I would have got zeros on my homework.
Before I changed directions, I want to actually I'm glad you mentioned that you did another art. Before I do that, and I want to discuss that briefly, before I do that, I need to explain something that's always been said about me. I had a friend back in high school and so forth that would tell me, quote, and you guys are not, those who know me will not be surprised by this quote, by the way. You've got so many irons in the fire that if I didn't see smoke coming out of there, I would think there was no fire. Because I am constantly doing something. My wife sometimes wants to slap me for that, which I don't blame her. Well, for a while, I was doing voice acting, and I had no background to do that with. I was originally taking those courses because of podcasting and learning. I wanted to learn more on the producer side, and I ended up working with this fantastic coach, fantastic actress named Christina Smith, and she taught me how to do this. All of her teaching taught me also, took me back to writing. And why am I breaking up? I know that I hate emotions. Anyway, taught me how to look at my characters differently, how to build them differently, and thus I was able to learn new skills. Okay, now enough of that bullshit. Moving on. This is rated PG. I can get away with a couple of curse words. Okay. What sometimes seems to be a stumbling block in your road to success? And I'm going to say this out front: success is never final. Okay, there's no success is never final. Failure is never fatal. Thank you, Winston Churchill. So, what's been some of your stumbling blocks, and how have you gotten past it? With Lady go first, and then to you.
Well, sometimes circumstances work against you. When I came out with my second book, the historical fantasy about Alexander Hamilton and Clinton, took place in Harlem, where they both worked and lived. Well, Hamilton lived there, Clinton worked there. It was during the Ferguson riots, and nobody was interested in anything that was coming out written that didn't have to do with Ferguson. The other thing was, in the book, it was not the main focus of the book, but I had Hillary Clinton as president, and Bill was like second banana, and that's why he was bored. He was kind of following her. They had a place in New York, and that didn't work out. So that book really suffered from political circumstances and timing in the news, and that can kill you. And I hurried to get it out before the election so that she'd be president, and look what happened. But that was okay.
Sometimes you have to gamble.
Yes, you have to gamble.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, things beyond your control sometimes will kill a book.
For me, the one particular story that I've always been kind of like grasping onto, despite the fact that it's such a niche market, is From Parts Unknown, which has gone through so many different iterations that I don't want to call it a success story yet. Just the fact that it's been able to last this long in my own mind would make it its own like kind of personal success story. But at the same time, everything in that story, every element of it, has always been a very niche market, and it's never gotten the kind of attention that that I've felt it deserves. At the same time, those that have taken the time to read it have really enjoyed it. But at the same time, like that's something that that can definitely be a stumbling block, because you feel like you're yelling into a vacuum, and that in itself can can ruin your confidence, can ruin your momentum, and it'll just kind of make you feel like what you're doing has no point. And you have to get through that. You have to figure out like what it is that's going to make that particular story work, if it's going to work at all. Like, I mean, if there are so many different factors that come into that, but the biggest one, like it's all about, you're only really a failure if you allow yourself to become one. And when you have those moments, they can really cripple you and really make you feel like what you're saying, what you're yelling out to the world has no value because no one else is giving it the time of day. So that can be a big stumbling block. You got to get through that.
I want to add just normal life circumstances, whether it be health, money. Like when I went back to school, anytime you have to take a extended period from writing, you tend to lose some of your fans. And then when you start back up, you kind of got to re-engage them and re-get them, connected to you again, or you might just completely lost them. One thing that can help with that is being honest with your fans and upfront with them and letting them know, hey, this is going on in my life. You don't have to get too personal. People don't like it if you get too personal. But just be honest with them and let them know, hey, this is happening. Find other ways to still kind of engage them online so you still keep them interested in you. That way when you have something new and you're finally back to producing, they're still there. They haven't just dropped away.
We're recording in front of a live audience at GatewayCon 2019. At this point, I'm going to see if any of the live audience have any questions for the panel. Cherie, you promised you had you would give me questions.
Well, I do. I have lots of questions.
Well, then throw me a question.
One of my questions would be, y'all talk about, defining success. I know how difficult it is because I left a very successful profession to pursue writing. And I will say I've never been happier in my life. A lot of issues that I had before. But I got to a point where that first book, now I'm marketing it. And now I'm querying and I'm doing all these other things. And I feel like I stopped writing. And the other book is exploding out of my head. So I definitely know what that's like. What is your recommendation for what I call time sucks?
Let me repeat the question, or the shorter version of the question into the mic while I can see from a distance. I'm looking at the computer that's recording us, but I saw also your voice really drop low. So ultimate thing is Cherie had left a lucrative job basically and to pursue her career love as a writer. Now she's stuck in the business end of the writing, and there are things that occur in there for time sucks, and how do we handle those? I'm going to come to you, Lee, next. I'm just going to quote Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman found himself responding to email constantly. In fact, he found himself responding so much to email that he joked and said he now feels like he's being more a professional emailer than he is being a writer. And he had to learn how to do exactly what you're talking about. How to adjust to time sucks.
One is very important. You do time management.
Yep.
Set aside an X amount of time to do your social media. Set aside an X amount of time to address fans or do posts or editing on projects, and stick to that time. Don't let it go over, and don't go down the rabbit hole of getting distracted and going elsewhere. Also limit what social media sites you're going to focus on. Use one or two as your main, and you can use the other ones occasionally, like when you have really new stuff to put out. Another thing that's really helped me is finally getting my actual website up, theleesavagemedia.com, because now I try to focus everyone to that, and that gives everyone the information off all the platforms. Instead of me having to go to this platform, that platform, and this platform to get the information out, it's all in one place. So now it's just trying to get them from all the scattered to come here. So
my recommendation is to hold your creative time sacred, because my time sucks are not necessarily using Twitter, although it might be using Tumblr. But mine is giving it away, because I still have a portion in my brain that says, you don't have a day job, you can work around everyone else's schedules, you're the flexible one. So you can meet that person for lunch. You can absolutely go work in this public place and do two things at once. Yeah, sure. And then I wonder why I don't get my projects done. It's because those projects take time and attention. And the attention is something that I have a hard time selfishly hoarding. And I said selfishly, it's not selfish. It's necessary. And that's the lie that I wanted to bring up. It's like, you're not selfish for saying my writing time is between 5 and 7 p.m. Please don't come in the office. Because you need to do that to get it done.
I liked Hope's. C. Hope Clark, who was one of our speakers this weekend and totally went on a whole rant about how she has a safe little zone in her house where you're not allowed to cross the threshold of the door without punishment.
Okay, I'm going to tie in. We've got a question coming up, so I'm going to tie in, come to George after that, and I'm coming straight to you. Okay, another thing too is I loved what you said, Jen. One of the things I've been changing with me is I do have a part-time job, almost not quite full-time, where I'm teaching people self-defense. What's interesting is I don't have a normal schedule anymore. Most people, they generally get up around 7, go to work, come home, go to bed around 10. I'm just making that numbers up. I am basically waking up around 9 in the morning, and I'm going to bed about 2 in the morning. So I've turned my writing time to about 10 p.m. to about 2 a.m. There's no telephone calls. There's nobody to bug me. It is beautiful. My wife is even asleep. The only ones that bug me are my 3 cats. So with that, over to George, and then I'm coming out to the audience.
There's also an interesting tool that you are able to get when it comes to social media to help you not only manage the time sucks, but also help you kind of spread it around, make it look like you're spreading it around throughout the day, and that's the scheduling tools. Mm-hmm. There are some great tools like Hootsuite and like TweetDeck and other types of things that allow you to basically like put some links out there, but you're doing it during your social media time, which is a very restricted amount of time, say like in the morning or something. Mm-hmm. Say like 9 to 11, basically like make that, you've had your breakfast, you're sitting down, you have 2 hours. What you're doing is you're creating all the different social media posts, and then you're scheduling them at different points throughout the day. So they're not just getting you from 9 to 11. They're getting you all day. And it's up to you to basically just say like, okay, well, this one's going to go out at say 4. This one's going to go out at like 6. This one's going to go out at 12. This one's going to go out at 2. At the same time, you're writing. You're doing your thing. You've turned off all the social media, and you're doing your thing. Meanwhile, the other you, the one that you've created through that scheduling, is out there doing all your work.
I like the idea of having a holographic clone that does work for you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Put an H on me on my head. Coming out to you right away. One thing that I found with TweetDeck and Hootsuite and that to be limiting is they only focus on Twitter. That may have changed since I last time used them. There are ones out there like Buffer, which actually goes across multiple platforms. Look for something that will save you a lot of time too. Coming out to you, sir.
I was actually going to talk about Hootsuite before, and I was curious what your opinions on that were. So Hootsuite does allow you to go to Facebook and to all of the social media.
Okay, so that's changed.
But I've been told by other people that you shouldn't really use it too much because you should focus certain things on certain platforms. So you don't want the same message going out across all platforms. But do you find that to be too much of a time sink?
No, that and basically like it's a matter of just kind of adjusting, what you have. As long as the message is the same, then you're fine. All you can do is just like kind of tweak it to cater to Facebook, tweak it to cater to Instagram, tweak it to cater to LinkedIn. There are different ways to tell the same message.
Brad, and then over to the lady.
So yeah, there are a couple things. First off, you should definitely tailor your message to each social media platform because you're reaching out to different audiences. Facebook has one audience. Twitter has a completely different audience. Tumblr has an even different audience from that. Instagram is even a little bit, is in completely different medium. So pushing out different things to different platforms is the other. The other one that Hootsuite and Buffer and everyone runs into are the new algorithms that don't like pushed content. Mm-hmm. So if you go to Facebook and directly post on your Facebook page, and you give it not a link to some crazy Twitter feed or not something like that is a company Facebook doesn't like, then Facebook will bump you up into other people's feeds. If you've got that, if you're from Hootsuite, Buffer, if you're pushing a tweet, something like that, Facebook will bury you so that no one sees that tweet because they want you to promote that tweet. Or they want you to do something else, but it's also their algorithm, and their algorithm is we like original Facebook content. So know that when you're getting ready to push out to these sites that sometimes it is best to go directly to the site and post right there.
I actually have a question about Hootsuite. can you skip days, or do you have to be? I mean, it's not helpful if you have to like be constantly on their schedule, or can you like take 3 days off, and they'll still be your tweeter and.
I would say, like, okay, I actually don't tweet every day, mostly because I don't want to annoy people and everything like that. And I'm not selling anything right now. So I have no need other than occasionally, like, I want to stay in touch with my people and I want to put out content that is funny. So right now, pretty much, because I'm not pushing anything, I am in the process, I might go a couple of days. On Tumblr especially, I might go a week or two without posting anything. But I don't have anything to push right now. Now, when I do have something to push, that's a much different story. So I'm gearing up right now because the History of St. Louis Writers Guild is going to be rolling out later this summer, and which means that I'm going to have to start getting ready to gear up to promote that novel. And once I do, then I guarantee you're all going to see a million cover posts and a million posts about it and links to the book and links to everything else that's coming up. And it'll probably be on an every other day basis where I'm smacking people over the head with something of the book. I don't like to do buy my book posts, or anything like that. It's not like I'm trying to assault you that way. But I do want to get the cover in front of you as much as I can. What do they say? It takes 8 posts or something like that for somebody to actually read it and retain something. So if you're trying to continually put, it takes 8 posts or something like that for the average person to see it or something like that. So just know that you have to you do have to do some repetitiveness, but try not to be just, this is the same post every single day.
Jen, over to you.
I know it's been stated in previous episodes of this podcast, but I hold to the philosophy that you should make a house somewhere. Pick one social media that is your house. This is where my audience is going to be built. Facebook, I'm on Facebook every day anyway. So I'm going to choose Facebook as my house, and I'm going to post everything first to Facebook, and then that Facebook post I can disseminate everywhere else. And say, go to Facebook to check out this thing. Then you don't have to make a post on Facebook, a post on Twitter, or a post on Tumblr. And you don't have to get Hootsuite to send the same post to everything and mess with the whole algorithm. You can make your post on Facebook and then Hootsuite the Facebook reference, and then your audience will start growing on Facebook because they're going there to look. Now you run the risk of losing the people that only use Twitter.
Right.
That they don't want to go to Facebook, but this is you choosing your house because you're not going to go to Twitter either. So building your place there is like you won't fill it with anything. So there's no audience being gathered there anyway. So pick something you're comfortable with that you're going to update, and then use these suites to feed the other streams and point them back to your house.
One final comment, and then we've got one final question for this podcast.
So apparently Facebook is very much aware of how much of a pain in the ass they are when it comes to these sort of scheduling posts. So they have created their own. So you can actually create your own posts on Facebook and schedule them on Facebook. Yep. And that will get around that whole Hootsuite, the Hootsuite issue of dealing with a third party.
It's not original Facebook content crap.
Now, is it letting you do that on your personal page, or is that only on author pages? Business pages.
Both.
I would think.
Okay,
I would think
cool.
both. Yeah.
Give it 15 minutes; they'll change the rules.
Oh yeah,
as they always do. So.
It's on the mobile app.
One question I've had at least 3 new authors, aspiring authors, asked me this weekend was, how important is it to have yourself separated with a personal and an author site? If you already have a Facebook site, and all of a sudden you're doing author things, is that a no-no, or should we always have a business author page and our personal page?
I think right now you've got, and then I'm going to go, Jen, then you, gotcha, and then now we're here, and then, did you have yours up? Okay. I just closed down my author page on Facebook, because I'm planning on doing a whole rebranding once things are further down the road. But I was listening to C. Hope Clark, and who is phenomenal as not only a speaker, but she understands the business, so forth.
Check out Funds for Writers.
And Funds for Writers, thank you. She does not have a business page on Facebook. She has a personal page because she says she likes to be able to connect directly to her people. And she just goes through her list every so often and cleans them because she's got 5,000 max on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I sat back going, that might be the best way to do it. I don't have an answer. Jen? then over to Lee.
I wanted to point out the max. Your personal Facebook, if you decide to have that be your only one, a personal Facebook does have a maximum friend number.
Right.
So you can hit did you say 5K?
5K is
5K is the
yeah.
max now. It used to be 3.
Yeah.
Which I followed some celebrities, and the celebrities would say, "I'm not taking friends anymore. Please stop sending them to me. I'm full." And so I skated in under the radar. So, but also when you have decided that your personal account is going to be your fan account, you have essentially killed everything about yourself other than your brand. Unless your brand is if you write political and you post political things, then posting on politics in your personal account is great. I write for children. I don't want the parents to look and see that I believe a certain color or whatever, and then them say, "Oh, I don't want that influencing my children." And so I never post anything political if I can help it on my Facebook page, because I'm aware that I am a brand, and that's a sacrifice I've made in order to have it. But I also do have so many author pages and book pages for specific things. Those are my short-term pop-up stores. There's a book coming out. I'm going to make a page for that book. We're going to use that for announcements for that book. That book goes dormant, but I'll put a post up that says, "Hey, follow me on this page now that this is done." So there's strategy. There's no one way to do it, but just keep in mind what it means when you decide to. If I'm going to start up an author page, you have to maintain that author page. So now you have 2 Facebook pages to maintain. Or I'm going to use my personal page. When you get to 5,000 fans, you cannot make any more real life friends. Right. Or you have to get rid of people, which, get rid of people. But it's, there are gives and takes.
Okay, we're going to have 4 final comments, and then we're going to close it. Lee, you're up
Okay,
next.
so to get around the max, no, you cannot accept any more friends, but they can still follow you. As long as you make all your posts public, they can still follow you, they can still comment, and they can still interact with you. They just cannot have the title of your friend, but they can completely follow you. I know this. I've been at max several times, and then I have to weed out the dead accounts. I have both. I have an author page, and I have my Lee Savage branded. You could create another alternate account to have your personal page. I don't do it. I don't want the time with it. So I know Lee Savage that's my brand, whatever. But I find all interaction is so much better on just the personal page. I just leave the author page. If I'm going to be at an event, then I start reposting stuff out there. Only because sharing that post off my timeline into the author page and then also posting it in the author page and sharing it on my timeline helps bump it up. Mm-hmm. It counts as shares, even though I'm the one sharing my own post. It just kind of helps feed the numbers a little bit and gets a little bit more visibility so my other friends can do it. So there's a couple loopholes around the whole 5,000 max.
Okay, over to Ed.
All right. I just think it's better to keep the writing on the author page. And because on your personal page, people will write things that are offensive to your readers that you didn't ask for and didn't know they were going to say. So I definitely like to keep those separate. And of course, there is no limit on it. And you can fixate it on that and let your crazy family or friends you haven't heard from in 10 years say something political or religious or something.
Yeah, for me personally, I do have an author page. I kind of view it as, if you're starting a business, you have an LLC, you create an LLC to protect your personal assets from the business assets. It's the same kind of mentality, and it does also give you some other tools. You get your analytics, but you can also target. So if you have some content you want to send out that's specifically for your readers, and they're a certain age group, they're a certain gender, rather than just blast it out to the entire world, you can feed those people directly. And so and it does cost, but you're getting more for your money, potentially.
Over to George for the final statement.
Okay, so just to kind of bring it back around regarding the elements of success, like what we all consider success. This is something that I feel I have to not let go without mentioning. But Last year, Jen Stolzer, Jessica Matthews, and I attended what was called the St. Louis Pop Culture Con. It was run by Scotty Schwartz, who played Flick from A Christmas Story, so he definitely had some name value of his own. He brought in a lot of guests from a lot of different avenues. He had some cast members from Greece. He had like Corbin Burnson. He had a couple of wrestlers. He had a couple
voice actors.
Yes, voice actors.
Did you say there were 24 guests there?
It was a good smorgasbord of pop culture. And the only thing that he didn't do was promote it because no one came. Mm-hmm. There was the most miserably attended convention that I think I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. But what that did, the fact that was such a terrible looking convention, really scared a lot of vendors. They were genuinely freaked out by the low numbers. But what that did was it allowed a lot of the people that were attending to kind of walk around and mingle. And all of a sudden, here I am talking with both Vicky Guerrero and Victoria from WWE, gifting them copies of From Parts Unknown and getting pictures with them, holding up copies of my book. And then them turning around and offering signed 8x10s in return, which I was able to get them to sign to my daughter. And getting to meet Alan Oppenheimer, the voice of Skeletor, and getting to gift a copy of Excelsior to him, to the point where he actually gets out of his chair at the booth so I can sit down and sign it for him while he's standing over my shoulder. And I'm just thinking, where the hell is the camera for all of this? Getting to exchange a signed 8x10 to a 4 copy to Greg Berger, the voice of Grimlock from Transformers. All of that, that doesn't happen if the convention was the success that it was supposed to be. So really, it was a perfect example of success just being in the eye of the beholder. I wound up having a terrific time there. Didn't sell a thing, but at the same time, it was an experience that that I'll never forget because of that. So, when it comes to success, as we've discussed throughout this episode, it's always, it's the main thing to keep in mind is your own perspective, not anyone else's.
And with that, thank you for listening. Continue on your own road of success. There may be other Right Pack Radio episodes coming out. So stay tuned and check out Winding Trails Media Podcasting Network. You can find it on Podbean and all the other areas you can get podcasts on. George has Excelsior Journeys. We are putting Right Back Radio back through syndication, and I will have a show called Exploration Beyond on that, exploring beyond your own limitations. Thank you. Have a good one. The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her.